Hi there. Today we're going to make pierogies, and you're probably wondering why I'm showing you these really pathetic looking potatoes. And the main reason is I don't have space to grow potatoes. Well, I might. I've got some that I've left that I've got drying to seed, but I still haven't decided if I'm going to plant any yet. I have to find a proper container. I've been looking for tires to do it, but as of yet haven't come across any. I'm going to phone a local junkyard and see if they'll give me some, or at least give me some for cheap. But I just wanted to show you that if you have yucky potatoes and you're not going to plant them, the thing that I like doing with them, I mean, you can still use them, they're totally fine, but I'm actually going to make pierogies today. So I'm just going to show you how I do that. I'm not going to film my whole potato peeling escapade here, but I just wanted to show you how many potatoes I'm using. So these are 4 large potatoes, and you'll see how many pierogies we get from this. So I'm going to finish cubing these. I'm going to boil them like you would for mashed potatoes, because that's basically what we're going to make. And then I will come back and show you what we do next. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, while we have the potatoes boiling here, I'm going to make the dough. I'm going to be making a double batch recipe, which is probably a batch usually does me and my family. I'm trying to think how many it makes. I think 3 dozen. About 2.5, 3 dozen. But I'm going to make 5 dozen. I'm doubling it. So if you have a smaller family, or if you don't want to freeze any, then just make half of what I'm making. I'm going to put the recipe in the description box as I make it, but just leave a note there that you can half it. That's 3 cups. There's going to be 4 cups of flour. And the dough is super simple. You can make it really complicated if you want. You can put sour cream in it. You can put milk in it. You can do whatever you want. Just remember how much liquid you need. And the liquid is, this is going to be 2/3 of lukewarm water. So if you're going to use milk, I would just warm it up a bit. So I'm just mixing the flour and the salt together, and I'm just going to make a bit of a well here. I don't really know why, it's just what I do. And I am going to beat the eggs first. I just like the quickness of it. Sometimes you can get little clumps of yolk. Sometimes I find if you don't mix it. Lots of things I say, don't bother beating them first, but here I do. I just use the measuring cup I put my flour in, and I just kind of break it up a bit. I'm not too crazy about whether we get it all. And you can put a little bit of oil. It's basically, you need liquid, and every ingredient you add is going to add a little bit of something to it, but the way that I was taught to make it, and it's just simple this way. So just beating that in, and then I'm going to put some warm water in. Not hot, because it will really gum up your dough. You have to be careful with hot water and flour, but lukewarm is perfectly fine. Just going to heat my water up a bit. Actually, I might take some of this. I'm going to make half of it potato water. So this is boiling. And you can use just your potato water if you have, I want to mix it with some cooler water. You can mix it just with your potato water, but you'd have to wait for it to cool down. So that's completely up to you. And my phone is ringing. I have no idea who it is. Let's check it out. I'll be right back. Okay, so I answered my phone call. So now I've mixed this all in, and you'll see it's definitely not a dough. So what you want to do is start kneading it and see if it will come together as a dough. Don't assume right away that it's doesn't have enough liquid. I can tell now by kneading it a couple of times that we're definitely lacking in water. So I'm just going to get some more lukewarm water and put just basically about a tablespoon at a time. And you're just trying to get a dough that comes together. That's it. Nothing goopy, something that you're going to be able to roll. Probably like a pastry dough, that kind of feel. You'll see, it's just basically all the flours come up. It's not crumbly. So I've only added 2 tablespoons, and that's probably going to be enough. And basically it's just going to get stiffer and stiffer. It's going to get pretty tough to start dealing with. I think I'm going to put this on the counter, make my life a little bit easier. I pretty much, actually, in all honesty, usually just do this right on the counter, but that can be a little messy for some people and makes them a little nervous, so a bowl is fine. But start kneading it. And if you've never kneaded before, if you don't make bread or anything like that, I'll just give you a quick... Okay, these potatoes are done, I better pull them. So I'm just going to drain them. If I was going to use the potato water, I would just strain it into a bowl. So basically all you do for kneading is just fold it almost in half. You leave just a little bit of a lip, put the back of your hand to that fold, and just push. You don't want to push all the way to the ground and create a big mess. And basically what you're looking for is a smooth dough. So even though our dough looked very dry when I just added the 2/3 water, it took maybe 2 tablespoons more to make it a nice dough. And what I'm actually going to do when I get this smooth looking is I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces and wrap it in plastic wrap and let it sit. You can let it sit just 10 minutes up to, you know, an hour, even more if you want to do this in the morning. And then when you get home, you just want to whip the pierogies together. It takes about, once the dough is all ready and you've got your potatoes mashed. Like when I was working, I would make the dough and boil the potatoes and whip them up and just leave them on the counter. And when I got home, I just rolled out the dough and boiled them. Filled them and boiled them, and it really took maybe a half an hour. So it's more the prep that takes any time, and it really doesn't even take that much time. Like, this is really a dish that's, I got it from my Ukrainian step-grandmother. My brother's Ukrainian. And the basic idea of it, I used to watch her when I was a kid, and I never got a recipe from her because she just threw everything together. But this is just a side dish that she would spend, you know, no time at all. You know, while the meat's cooking, pierogies are done. It was a side dish that was served all the time, basically every meal. It's pretty good. Now you're not looking for a nice smooth consistency like you would bread, like with no blemishes, no pulls. It's not really what you're going for here. It's just making sure it's combined, the glutens are all together, and you're just looking for basically a dough that's going to stick together, and that's looking pretty good. If you think it's a little bit sticky, not goopy, but just a little bit too sticky, do not worry about it, because you're going to be rolling it out on flour later. So I wouldn't worry about it. And the liquid in it starts to really absorb into the flour. So don't worry about it too much. I use a plastic bag. I'll show you what I do. Instead of wasting plastic wrap, You can use like veggie bags. I never throw a veggie, you know, like vegetable bags. Sometimes I'll put things in vegetable bags just to have extra vegetable bags. So I just put a piece of dough in, give it a little twist, put another piece of dough in. I'm super cheap. And I'm always, and I think probably a bit lazy maybe. And so I'm always thinking of ways to do stuff in one package. But you can definitely wrap this in plastic. I mean, that's no big deal. Basically, all you're doing is trying to keep them from drying out. So that'll fit 3. And I'll just tuck the end in there. And I've got some extra Ziploc bags laying around. Throw this one in there. Of course you can, oh, I might as well just zip it up. See, that's how lazy I am. I was just trying to tuck it underneath. Anyways, I'm going to let that sit probably about a half an hour. I've got some other things that I want to get done. Oh, and my camera fell. Anyways, we'll be back soon. I don't know what you're looking at. Oh, my kitchen. Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Okay, while we're waiting for the dough to rest, we're going to mash the potatoes. I basically like to do it when it's hot because if any of you have ever tried to, you probably haven't, but if you've ever tried to mash potatoes when they're cool, yeah, that's not a whole heck of a lot of fun. I'm going to use my beater, and of course, I'm sure I don't have to tell most of you how to mash potatoes, but I'm going to put in some milk and probably about a teaspoon at least of salt, and I'll taste it. I really find that if I make the potatoes a little salty, people don't feel the need to put so much butter on mashed potatoes when you do that. So that's really why a lot of people put a lot of butter on mashed potatoes. So try making them a little extra salty. And my family, we have a rule in our house, you have to taste your food before you're allowed to put salt or pepper or any seasonings whatsoever on it. Because I try different things, and sometimes I purposely made it salty. So my whole family knows that they don't season with butter with anything until they've tasted a food. So that's just I'm just kind of quirky that way, because you just don't know. I don't understand that, especially when people go to restaurants and the first thing they do is season the food. You really have to taste your food before you season it, because you could really end up destroying your meal. And you know really where I learned that was, I grew up really poor, and we didn't really go to restaurants or anything like that. And I met my husband, and he grew up in a significantly more affluent family, and they didn't eat out, they weren't extravagant or anything like that, but eating at fancy restaurants and stuff like that, they did do. And for me, it was just automatic. My mom was more of a meat and potatoes kind of more bland type cook. And not bland, I mean, it was fine, but it was, you know, just your meat and potato stuff, so you put salt and da-da-da. Anyways, long story short, my husband started taking me to a little bit fancier restaurants and things like that, stuff I wasn't used to, and I would season the food. Well, when you go to a fancy restaurant, they really pride themselves on having food well seasoned. Lots of them, they won't even have salt and pepper on the table because it's basically an insult. And in the beginning, I sometimes, you know, made the food almost unpalatable because I had tried to season it. First off, I probably didn't even understand what the dish was because there's different, they serve different stuff. But because it was already so well seasoned that adding anything really did wreck it. And that's why a chef would consider it quite an insult. So I tell my family to make sure they always taste their food first, especially if they're visiting somewhere, because it kind of is an insult. You're saying that person doesn't know how to season food well. So that's why I always say test what you're cooking. to make sure it's well seasoned. But you know, there's some instances where, you know, you go to mom or dad or grandpa's or grandma's and you know they're not allowed to use salt, so you can pretty much guess that you're going to need salt in there. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, so this is just plain potato so far with my little story. I'm going to add a little bit of minced onion, but not much because I do have little kids, and if they catch me doing that, they don't get very happy with me. A very tiny bit, and I'm going to put some cheddar cheese in it, grated up. So I'm going to get the cheddar cheese grated up, throw it in there while it's still hot so it will mix in well. I don't go crazy with it because they basically know it has cheese in it if it's orange. That really, I have a real hard time even tasting it, so I don't overload it with cheese. Why waste the cheese if really you're going to, I mean, with pierogies you put sour cream and onions and stuff on top, so you really don't need all that much. So I'm going to do that to orange it up a bit and put a little bit of onion flavor in there, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've mashed my mashed potatoes, and I have a few lumps in here that I can't seem to get out, probably because the potatoes were soft. I find when the potatoes are soft, sometimes you get these odd chunks that I just can't beat out. So you need to take these out. You definitely can't have lumps. Most people don't want them in their mashed potatoes anyways. But in pierogies you definitely don't, because a lump that size, that's basically how much you're putting in your pierogies. You don't want to have this hard lump in there. Excuse me. So just make sure, and basically this is the consistency that you want. Kind of you could roll it into a ball if you wanted. You know, that kind of consistency. And I'm finding these little chunks. I probably could have cooked it a bit longer, but I wanted to make sure I didn't waterlog my dough. But when you're going to fill your pierogies, you'll really get a feel for the pierogi, for the potato feeling, because you'll be feeling it. Some of you will. Some of you might choose to use a scoop like I do, or a teaspoon, but just kind of go through it. And this has to be completely cool. So don't fill this with hot potatoes, because you're just going to ruin the dough it's going into. Because basically what we're going to do is make a round dough piece, put this in the middle and fold it over together. Well, if this was hot or even too warm, it would really start to melt your outer dough, and it'll just destroy your pierogi. So make sure this is cool. Don't stick it in the fridge. It doesn't have to be ice cold, unless you just want to hurry up and get it cooled off, which I might do just so I can get this video put out for you and move on to some other projects I have for the day. But it doesn't have to be ice cold. Just room temperature is perfectly fine. So I'm going to let that cool, and in a little bit I'll start rolling out the dough and show you how we do that. Okay, I'm going to roll out the dough. I've got 4 batches that I'm going to be doing, so I'll film one, and it'll give you plenty of opportunity to learn what it is I'm doing, and then you can always replay it if you need to. So I've just sprinkled some flour, and all I'm going to do is roll these out about 1/8 of an inch thick. Dough maybe wants to rest a little bit longer because it's springing back on me, which means the gluten hasn't relaxed yet. But I'm just going to keep working this one. The other ones will be resting while I'm working this one. And basically, you don't want it too thick because you're going to be folding it over. So you want to make sure, one of the things I sometimes do too is I don't flour the board very much if I know it's going to be springing back like that. I just roll it right on and let it stick to the table, but sometimes when I go to cut them, the the dough will spring back then when I cut it with the cookie cutter. So, it's fighting me. But I'm just going to keep working it, getting it rolled out. It's kind of floating around on me. I used to own a pizza shop, so I know how to toss dough. You definitely don't have to do this. But it helps relax the dough a bit. So you can always work it just with your hands. I sold my restaurant a year ago now, so sometimes I miss tossing dough. The opportunity when I can. But this really, it's very tactile. This way you can really feel what your dough is doing. Usually I do it up more in the air, so. And what you can do is you kind of pull where it's thick. And I find my edges are really thick right now. It's thinning in the middle, but my edges are thick. So I'm just doing it basically to show you that the dough is really quite workable. So, and you can roll these in bigger batches. I mean, you don't have to split the dough up, but I find a lot of times when people have problems making stuff, it's because they overwhelm themselves. They think, oh, that's not too much. Well, if I was rolling these all out, it would be taking up a significant amount of my counter. And a lot of people don't have the counter space that I do. I'm blessed to have a nice big counter to work on. So this amount of dough, which would be this is a double batch, remember. If you're working a single batch, this still would be double. I mean, it would still be quite large. So, and this way people with just a little bit of counter space have more of an opportunity. Okay, I think we've worked this quite well. I would suggest, if you can, to let it sit a good hour. And not in the fridge, but out. Or even the day before. That would be perfectly fine. If you're going to let it sit overnight, though, do put it in your fridge because it's got egg in it, so it's probably just best. Okay, so it's quite thin. It's not complete, it's not see-through, it's not that thin, but it's fairly thin. I would say 1/8 of an inch is probably what it is. I knocked the camera. I'm just going to double check that we've still got good. Oh yeah, we're still fine. So you just kind of look and see if you've got thick spots. I've got a little bit of a thick spot there. And then let it shrink. It's shrinking back a little bit. Let it do that. Because if you don't, it's just going to do it when you cut your circles anyways. So, still shrinking a little bit on me. It's looking good though. Give it another. I'm pressing down fairly hard when I do this, but mostly because I know it's going to spring back on me because it's just not relaxed enough. But it's a good workout. And I'm doing quite well on my diet. I think I would do even better if I was exercising. But I'm so busy doing all this stuff all the time. By the time I'm done, I'm pooped. But I'll give you guys an update tomorrow on my diet. I'll leave it as a surprise. Okay, so it looks like it's done springing back. This is a 3-inch cookie cutter. You can use a glass. You can use anything that you want. You can put a bit of flour on it. I usually just have like this. And make them as absolutely close together as possible, because you can rework this dough and use the scraps, but you really have to let it rest, because this simple type dough does not like to be messed around with too much. So if you want to reuse the scraps, you really have to, like I said, let it rest. So I try to have as few scraps as possible, and if I really don't need to reuse the dough, I don't. But you definitely can. Like if you want to make more the next day, then that would be fine. But remaking it that day, chances are pretty slim. So just try to use as much of the dough as you can, in case you find the same thing, that it's just not working for you. So remember, this is only 1/4 of that batch, and we'll see how many we get out of here. You want full circles though. You really need, you can't have cut off circles. You can, but you're just making more work for yourself. Okay, so how many did we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. So 2 dozen basically. We got 2 dozen out of it. And you can fill them and then pull them off of their dough, their scrappings if you want. I tend to just want to do it now. Try to really get in there and get these cut, otherwise you have to do what I'm doing right now, and that's finishing the cutting process with my fingers, which can be a bit of a pain. Try as much as you can to not stretch your circles, because you really need them to be as together, as circular as possible, because you're going to be reshaping these, filling them and folding them over. So if you make them odd shaped circles, they can be a pain in the butt to work with. So I'm just going to pull these scraps off. You're going to need a little bit of egg white, milk, or I just use plain old water. And that is because these are quite dry. I put maybe a little bit too much flour than I like, but that's not a big deal. But it just means you might need some water to help seal your pierogies together so your filling doesn't fall out when you're boiling them. So I'm going to get this done, get my water ready, and start filling them and show you how I fill them. So we will be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've got all the scraps peeled off. It just makes it easier for me. And here is our potato mash. And I've got this little scooper. I'm trying to see. It's basically a teaspoon. So you can use a teaspoon. I just happen to have this, so I use it because then it's a uniform amount. You do not need one of these. I mean, I'm sure my Nana would laugh at me if she saw me using this little scooper, but, or maybe she would think it's helpful. I don't know. So basically, you just want this little mound in here, and super easy. But I'll show you with a teaspoon. So if you used a teaspoon, you would just use kind of that much. Same type of idea. Kind of a mound of the tip. And you'll know if you have too much. Don't fill it up too much, because you will regret it, because it'll just start falling out on you and you'll be like all frustrated. So don't be too crazy. Just have a little mound. I'm just so used to using this thing, I have to use it. I use it for everything, these little scoopers. I've got 3 sizes. I've got this size, then I've got my cookie shaped size, and then I've got a big one. This I use for perogies and mini muffins. It's the perfect amount for the little miniature muffins or cupcakes. I have the next size, which is perfect for, you know, like a regular size cookie. And then I've got a big one that's the perfect size for large muffins. Not like the Texas size muffins, but the just a regular muffin size. And it's also good for portioning, like if you're making your own hamburger patties, stuff like that. Okay, so now folding. So what I do is I just kind of push my thumb on here, fold it over, and really squeeze those edges together. What you want to avoid is, see how the potato's coming out? Because it's a nice thick potato dough, I can just push that back in there, pull my dough out, and pinch the edges. And that's it. That's a pierogi. And so if I find that it's not sticking well, you just put a tiny bit of water on your finger and put water on half the edge. So I just kind of... Okay, so as I was starting to show you how to do that, my camera battery died. So I am on my last batch now. I just let it charge for about 15 minutes or so. So I've got enough to finish. So I just wet the edges and I pull the edges over and make like a little purse. Kind of push the potato down and pinch the edges. So I'll make a few while I'm videoing, and you can get an idea. Don't worry about too much water really, because they're going to dry out, and I'll show you. So basically what you're wanting to do is make sure that it's sealed. So I've got a little hole there, so I'm just checking. What you're trying to do is keep the potato out of your seal, because it will make your potato, your pierogi explode and pop open. So if you've ever had that happen, that's what happened, is potato got in your seal. So try to keep it out as much as possible, but I really pinch mine so that even if a little potato is in there, it's got kind of a couple layers of points that it's sealed together. So I'm hoping that this is videoing alright. I don't have the brightest kitchen in the world, even though I do have a really big window. It's cloudy today, and my lights in here aren't very bright. One day I'm going to have a new kitchen, and it's going to have a big, huge light. So I kind of flatten it, sort of where I want the potato to stay. Fold it over, pinch it in the middle, and then that gives me a guide as to where. So I'm just pushing the potato in, pinching, going to the other side, push the potato in, and pinching. So I'll do these, a few of these, and hope you're catching it. It's hard when you don't have somebody videotaping for you, because when I do all of this, I do it when my husband's at work and my older kids are at school, and my youngest, whom I have at home with me, is otherwise occupied. So, and 6-year-olds don't make very good cameramen. I'm just wondering, because I keep turning it, if you guys are catching the fold over, so I'm going to try to see if I can. Okay, so I kind of push it down with my thumb. It's hard to know what you're actually doing, because it's just so, it becomes such an automatic thing. So I'm pushing it down, folding it over, pinching the middle, pushing the potato in, coming to the other side, pushing the potato in, kind of pinching like that. I'll do one more. It's kind of like, I always think of, you know, when you see those pictures of a stork carrying a baby in the little pouch, that's kind of what I think of when I look at it like that. I kind of think of a little baby in a pouch. It's funny how kids are strange. My son, my youngest son, as a lot of you know, he's got some health issues, and he's a little bit different, very stubborn, strong-headed, and he's always said he doesn't like pierogies. He's had this thing about about potatoes in general. He likes French fries, but no other potatoes. And he watched the movie Kung Fu Panda, and I was making these, and he said, "Are those dumplings?" And I said, "No, they're pierogies. They're called pierogies." He says, "I hate pierogies." And I said, "Okay." And he came back and he said, "Are those dumplings?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, they're dumplings." Because they are. They're called a Polish dumpling or a pierogi. Depends on what country or what origin you're talking about. They're basically the same thing. And so he says to me, "I love dumplings." And so I made him some for lunch, and he devoured them. So sometimes you just have to be creative when it comes to your kids. So this is what I made from 4 potatoes. We've got 1, 2, 3.5 layers. I don't know how many I've made though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I don't think I'm going to be able to count these. Now, the reason I do this, I just layer them like this, and I just kind of let them dry out a bit. Whatever I make for dinner tonight, I am just going to drop in boiling water. When they raise to the top, which only takes a couple of minutes, they're done. You can eat them just like that. Or you can put a little bit of butter in a frying pan. I like to boil mine regardless. It kind of takes some of the starch out of the flour. So I boil them, and then I fry them in butter in a frying pan. And you eat them with, they're traditionally eaten with sour cream and or sauerkraut, bacon bits on top. You can put bacon bits inside. You can, but we love bacon on top of them. You can also, what I do is I cut half an onion, and I put some butter in a pan, and I put it at about medium, and I put raw onion in it. And you're not frying the onion. A lot of people eat them with fried onions, that's fine, but we call them butter boiled. And you cook them until the onion is translucent, and it makes an onion butter and onions, and you put it on top. So I'm hoping that when I cook these for dinner tonight, it's not going to be too chaotic, and I'm going to be able to film that for you. But if not, that's all you do. I mean, plain and simple, you boil your water, some salted water. As soon as they rise to the top, it's cooked. That's it. They're done. But fry them if you want, or whatever. If you want to freeze these on a cookie sheet on parchment paper. When they're frozen in just a couple hours, peel them off, throw them into a plastic bag, and you have pierogies whenever you want. So, to make a big batch like this, it took me about an hour, and this is enough for, well, we eat about oh, I don't know, 3 dozen in a meal, maybe. But remember, that's 6 to 8 people eating them. And you can serve this with anything, but we get like a Ukrainian sausage or something, and I fry it in the frying pan. Or this is not a low-fat meal at all. It can be if you just make these just potato, put a little bit of low-fat sour cream on it, and yummy. But when we make it, it's not low-fat at all. So I fry some type of sausage, and me personally, it's kind of a traditional thing that we do, is that we mix real mayonnaise and yellow, like Hellmann's mustard together, and you dip the sausage in that. So yeah, it's super, like, the pierogi is fine. This is not an over-the-top unhealthy thing, but all the stuff we put on it and dip them in, there's a million variations. You literally can fill this with anything you feel like. Some people fill them with just sauerkraut, or sauerkraut and cottage cheese, or cottage cheese and fruit. That's super good. I love that. Or ricotta and fruit, cream cheese and fruit. You can put just fruit in them. I like, if I'm going to do just fruit, which I don't do often, but if I do, I put them in frozen, because then it's easier to pinch. If they're like, or fresh, frozen or fresh, but if they're frozen and thawed, they're too watery and it's just a pain. So either frozen or fresh. And like, don't they look pretty? They're so cute. Just these little dumplings. But oh, man, jam, you can put jam in these. Totally can put jam in these. And you serve them with whipped cream, or you can drizzle like icing and sugar on them. It's basically endless. You can put whatever you want in them. So that's pierogies. This is probably a really long video, but like all of my videos, I am teaching you like you've never made anything in your life. This is right every single second of the making of it, so that you can really learn from these videos. So anyways, that's it. That's me. And I hope you enjoy it. And I'm really going to try to attach cooking these on here. But if I don't, I will another time, because I make these often. But I'm really going to try. But with this many kids, and I've got 5 kids home tonight, plus friends. So it's going to be pretty nutso here tonight. So, but anyways, that's pierogies. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learned how to make pierogies. And with all of my videos, if you make my recipes and you're comfortable to just film the process and attach it as a video response, that would be awesome, because then we can all learn. Thanks. Okay, so I have to cook some pierogies for my son because he has to go to baseball. So I'm just going to show you. So you drop them in. I never, in a pot this size, I never put more than 12, but it's just for one of my sons. So I'm going to cook them for probably 8. 5, 6. So I'm just going to cook those, and I just give it a quick stir to make sure none of them drop to the bottom and stuck. And what we're waiting for is for them to float. It should take just a couple minutes. They're already starting to try to come to the top. So when they do, oops, I steamed up the camera. I will come back and show you. Okay, so it's been a minute and a half, and they're floating. So what I'm going to do, I've just got this little frying pan because it's just my one son. I'm just going to fry them up in the frying pan and serve them. He doesn't like the onions or the sour cream or nothing, so I just put bacon on his, and that's it. So that's what they look like when they float, all nice and together. And I'll fry one up and I'll show you what the inside looks like. Okay, so here they are. He doesn't like his fried really brown. Some people in my family do and some don't. So I'm just going to cut it open and show you what it looks like inside. So it's just a dumpling. Yum. And I gave him one of the biscuits from yesterday. And like I said, he doesn't like the sour cream or the butter or anything, so but he needs this protein for playing baseball, and this is a good carb, good protein. So normally I would put sour cream on this, some caramelized onions, and some green onions, and then put this on. So that's it. That's pierogies. Super easy.